My name is Daryl, and this is Programming in Any Language. We're working with C# right now, but the principles are all the same in all languages. Master these principles and you can easily jump to any other language quickly. Last time you saw the flashcard application, and we learned how the random number generator works, but we still have more to think about. Another thing we need to check into is all this visible, invisible stuff. Buttons appear, labels appear, then they disappear. How do you set that up? How do you make this application really user-friendly? The math part is the easy part. We've done that before. I know that takes little time to put together. Building a user-friendly flashcard application is not hard, but you need to get pretty intimate with your code so you know how to make this user-friendly. And one other thing, those buttons with the math operations on them, those are graphics. How do we do all that cosmetic stuff? A good finished product is part good coding and part cosmetic. A little science, a little artistry. Let's take all that one step at a time. So the first piece we need to do, even before understanding the random number generator, is designing our form. That has to come first. Another word for that is planning. We've got to have a plan. Let's give that a go. Putting together a real app kind of takes a little bit of time to kind of figure out how you're going to make it presentable to the audience. And it's not just as simple as putting together what we've been doing so far in math and other things by throwing some statements together so we can add, subtract, multiply, and divide. We need to think about it. So we're looking at creating a flashcard application, for example. We need to think about what we're going to be doing first before we actually design it. We need to know what we want to know. We know what's our goal. What's our goal in doing this? Next thing I want to know is, what do we know now? What do we have? Then finally, how do we get there? What's missing? Take a look at these three pieces and try to understand it first. We do this before we attempt to even try to write the program, write the application. We want two random numbers to pop up. We know that much. We want to know what the answer is when we add, subtract, multiply, and divide those numbers. So that's basically what our goal is. So we're going to flash up a couple numbers, get them to give us an answer when we elect to find that answer. So that's what we're looking at. Next thing I want to know is what do we have right now? Well, we can use the random number generator. There's one of those to provide those two numbers, and I'll show you how to do that. How we can actually get that piece together. That's the one missing link I think we haven't covered so far, and we're going to use that to make this kind of thing happen. We also know we can do math on these two numbers to get the results. So if we use integers, we know we can add two integers together and provide a sum or a remainder or whatever for dividing, multiplying, doing that kind of thing. Well, how do we get there? What's missing in that place? Well, we need to generate two numbers. We need to do the math and display the results. We need to allow the application to continue until stop. We want to make this thing repetitive so it continues on. We need to provide an attractive application that's easy to use. So we know that it's not just throwing something together so that it can sit there. It's something that somebody's going to be using. And that means it's got to be intuitive. It's got to be something that they can easily work with. So we can kind of sketch something out. We might start out by just kind of creating what might look like our form here. We might call it flashcards. We're probably going to have a number pop up in here. Probably have a number pop up in here. And we want to see a result here. So that much is said. We certainly can start and build on that when we kind of think about it. So you can do this on a napkin. You can do this on paper. If you can do it, I did this on PowerPoint. I could use a flowchart program, whatever I want, just to kind of get this idea down. But I don't want to make it. I'm not going to be an artistic genius with this thing. I'm just going to get sketching my ideas down so that I can take this to Visual Studio and then mock up a form that I want to work with. So we might want to put down the addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. These little guys right here, however they might work, and make those things happen. Can I actually? I'm in display mode now, right? So I can't move these things around. But we want this there. These will probably end up being buttons of some kind. So a couple of numbers will pop up in here. We'll press the add, and something will come up here. That's going to work. But we also need to figure out how we're going to generate these random numbers. Random numbers get generated by a random number generator, and you as the programmer can specify what range of numbers to actually have those things come out in. If I want only numbers 0 through 10 to pop up, I can set that max right in here, and then my numbers that come up 2 and 7, 3 and 6, or whatever. Or I can actually go down here and pop in maybe 100. And now I can have 99 pop up here and 32. You know, it could be a little bit more, a little more dynamic program. It's going to be a little more challenging to use by having bigger numbers. So you go as high as you want, really. We can put a limit on this or whatever. But basically, this is the one area that we're going to have an input file. So these are probably going to be labels right here. This is probably going to be a label here. And this is probably going to be a text box, an inbox of some kind. We'll be able to clear everything with a clear button, probably an exit button to get out. We might have a start button, something to continue or whatever else. We're not sure of that now, but we can kind of create that as we go along, as we start to put this thing together. So this is what we would do to actually build this. The next thing I do is kind of build ourselves a place to actually put all this stuff. So let's get out of here once and pop this out. And let's go ahead and get our little, I've got a little pad already set up here. I've got a little file set up here called, I happen to call this thing flashcard demo, and it's got a little place where I'm going to store things. And what I'd like in here, in fact, what I've done is I've created a folder called the flashcard demo folder. So inside here, I want to put things. Next thing I'm going to do is bring up Visual Studio. So I'm going to bring that kind of guy up and bring it up so we got it coming to the surface so we can actually work on this thing and make something happen. Visual Studio pops up with this little thing here. We want to create a brand new project, so we click on this. And it comes up with a Forms.network.net framework, and I'm looking for what I actually want is an application. That is stated right here. It's a C# application I want to create. I don't see it on the side over here. If I didn't see this, I'd need to navigate here and get it. It's down here someplace. I'll just go to it so we can see that it's there. What's it called? Windows, www. Here it is, Windows format right down here. You can pick on a C# thing right there. .NET Framework version. And here it is. Here it is right here. So we can grab this thing if we want. Now it is already there, so we can simply say next and go for it. It's going to give us this little window. We're going to create something. We're going to call this our flashcard. Flashcards. Let's call it flashcard demo. We'll call it that for lack of any other name. And we'll navigate to this folder I've got back here so I can actually get in. Here's a flashcard demo right here. It's going there, so I'm going to, I believe this is it. Let's make sure I've got this thing right. I'm going to my flashcard demo, application flashcard demo, and here's the folder I want. This is the one I want. Okay, so I'm going to select this folder and go, and now I'm going to create that application. Click this on right here. And that pops Visual Studio. It's all set to go. I'm going to do the scaling right away. I happen to have multiple monitors here. You may not get this kind of thing. If you have a single monitor, you won't get this. But I'm getting a 100% scaling. I want that to actually restart it so I get 100% scaling. So I'll do that real quickly. And there it pops up for me. Now I'm all set to go, and I can actually go ahead and design this thing. Correct scaling's already there. So I can click this off. I don't need to see this anymore. And now I can go ahead and kind of design my form as best I can. So I'm not going to use one as wide as this, so I'll just probably shrink it down a little bit so it's got a better size to it. And what I'm going to do right away is I'm going to put down the labels that I know I'm going to be having. I want those couple numbers to show up here. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up my toolbox. It's showing up now. And I know I want to bring a label up here. So I'll bring up all my common controls. And there's my label right here. I'm going to bring it forward, bring it down here, and put it over here someplace. Now what I want to do with this label is change some of its properties. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to make it auto size false. I'm going to change that so that I can control how big it's going to be, and I can size it any way I want, like this for example, and move it around. I'm also going to make it fixed 3D. My border style. So I can just launch down here and find it and give it kind of a chisel look, so it looks kind of like it's been chiseled in stone. I'm going to set the text alignment, which is sitting down here, to middle. So it's middle center. So it's sitting in there. So when we see anything come up, it's going to pop up in the center. I don't need this thing as wide because it's going to hold a number. So I might bring it down to something like this. And we'll adjust that size once we get a few more of these on here and make it look like we want. Now that I've got this thing in place here, and I want to get rid of the center. I don't want that showing up either. So we'll get rid of the label piece on this thing and make it disappear. Then I want so you can see the kind of the chiseled look it has right now. I want to make a copy of this. I'll do a Control C and the Control V, and this will be the second number I'll put in. I kind of want to give them those names, so I'm going to do that right now and call this first one. I use Hungarian notation when I do this, and I'll call this LBL for label, and I'll call it first number. And I'll do the same with this, except I'll call it LBL second number. And I want to make this copy down here. I'm going to grab this guy, do a Control C and bring him down here, and I'll call this thing LBL answer. This is going to hold the answer that I'm actually going to have here. Now to pretty it up, it has to make a line across this thing. To do that, I could use a number of different things. I could use a picture box, put a graphic in or whatever. It's just as easy though to grab a label. So what I'm going to do is actually I'll grab this label right here and do a Control C and then a Control V to make it. Then I'm going to make some changes to it. I'm going to put it right in here, make it a little larger. So I'll do that. And I'm going to change the properties on this thing. So this one is not fixed 3D. It is rather simply fixed none. Actually, let's make it none. And in the text property, I'm going to put in some underscores. So I'll just type underscores in here. See how that looks. Comes out like that. It's not too bad. Let's make these bold right away. I could change the font on this thing. And let's make it bold. That's always handy. And let's make it a font of, let's say, 30. And that puts it down at the bottom there. That doesn't look too bad though. If we look at it, we can actually really run this real quickly. Let's save all and run it just to see what it looks like. Always nice to kind of get an idea of what's happening in your program. Let me do that. And it comes up like this, and it's not too bad. I don't like where it is. I think it should be up a little bit more because it looks kind of ugly from here. So I'll close this thing off and maybe I'll just drift this thing upwards a little bit and then see what that looks like. Yeah, that looks reasonable. So you're not seeing that line, you're seeing just basically a line here. So we've got basically a number coming in, and our answer will be down here, and this will be kind of our line where the sum will be placed underneath this thing. So that's fairly decent. We'll arrange these things. These sizes are not right yet, but we've got them there. So that kind of takes place of the pieces we're going to be needing here. Now if we look at this, one easy way to actually make it all the same size is to highlight the first one so you get these little white squares around it. Hold on your Control key and then click on the others. And then you go up to Format and you can say Make Same Size, both width and height. And it shrinks them all down to the right size now. Now you can kind of adjust them to make them look a little better, bring it down here like this, and that might make it look a little more appealing. Bring this thing up a little bit more, maybe, and then bring this thing up, and you pretty much got yourself a display. Let's see what it looks like. Not so bad, except this is kind of crowding in front of that thing, so we want to fix that up. Since that is crowding in the way, what I can do is send this thing to back. So I'll just right click on this thing and send to back. That puts it behind the other one. Now it's actually going to appear a little bit better. Let's actually make a change this thing, bring it down a little bit. So it's like this. And then we can do our file save all, and do a run. And see what she looks like. That's reasonable. Now we see our numbers in here. We can't type anything in there, but we see them in there. So that's looking good. By the way, I did not name this thing because we're not going to be using it in code, so I just left it label 1. Don't care, because it's going to just be a graphic that's going to show on the screen as it is. It's a pretty simple matter now of putting our buttons on here. We'll just double click on our button routine and bring a button and lay it down here. And again, we're going to set the properties of this thing initially. I'm going to call this thing clear. And I'm going to size it by changing the font here. I'm going to actually go to my font here, and I want to make it bold. And then I'll make it maybe a point size 12. And you can see it's a little bigger than the button, so I'm going to kind of adjust the button a little bit, make it a little bit larger, kind of put it in a spot where it needs to be, and maybe this should be just about fine when I look at it. And since I'm referring to this thing in code, I want to give it a name, and I'll call it button clear, using Hungarian notation BTN for button, and then CLEAR for the name that I'm going to be using in code. Now I can very easily make Control C, Control V, bring this one down and put it over here, and change its name to exit. And change the button name to BTN exit, since I'm referring to this thing in code as well. The next thing I'm going to do is I want to be able to get that number, that max number we want to create here. So I'm going to create a little label or text input box, I should say, a text box. I'm going to grab this guy and pop him in here, and he's going to be sitting down here someplace probably. And what size should I make him? Well, for starters, I'm going to give him a name because I'm going to be using this one in code. I'm going to call it text, TXT for Hungarian notation, and then call it max number. That's the max number we're going to be able to enter in here. The other thing I'm going to do is make our text alignment, which is down here someplace, because we're going to actually put a number in there. I want to create the text alignment to be centered. So you enter a number there, and it's going to appear in the center of the box itself. How big is this thing going to be? Well, we're going to change the font on this. So we're going to make our font a little bigger. So like the labels, we're going to call this thing, or make this font bold and 12. And it kind of made it a larger size to begin with. I can actually shrink this down because we're putting a number in here. It doesn't have to be any bigger than that. Let's take a look and see what the number looks like if I put it in here. So I'll do a file save all again, and I'll run this thing. And let's put our number in here. Say we're going to make 100 as our big arm. That's what it's going to look like, so that's reasonable. It looks like these guys down here, the exit and the clear, so that's fine. So let's call it that. That'll be a great number. Now, it's always good to have some direction on here, so we do want to create a label on the front of this thing. So we'll grab a label here, and that label is going to be over here. And in here, we're going to actually type in the words enter maximum number to generate, and give it a colon. Hit enter on that thing. It's fine, doesn't look very good. Need to make this a little bigger, so we'll play with the font a little bit. And that font's going to be also bold. And we'll go, let's try 12. Looks okay. I have to maybe adjust a little bit, bring our text box our text box over here so it looks kind of good. But that seems to be okay. It does look reasonable. So we're going to go ahead and take this thing right here and hold the control key down, get them both aligned, and then say format. We'll align their middles. Now they look kind of nice together. So that looks pretty good from what we're actually seeing here. The other thing I want to do is we're going to need some kind of a, when we actually create this, so we actually start this program up, we're going to put our number in here. In order to get it to go, we're going to need some kind of a button, like a start button. So I'm going to grab this guy right here, do a Control-C, lay him up in here, and change the name to Start. I'm also going to give it the Hungarian notation name so I can refer to it in code as button start. And that should put us in good shape right here. And for now, this looks pretty good. This gives us something to work with at least. We're going to make it look a lot nicer later, but this allows us, it gives us the two labels. We're going to be seeing generating numbers in here. And this is our display out, so we'll have to think about how we're going to actually put in the commands to make this thing work in a bit. But for now, this seems to do the job. So let's go ahead and let's program the exit button real quickly. That's the easiest one to do. So we'll just double click on the code. That code pops up, and I'm simply going to say, I'll give it a comment, close form, and we'll call it this dot CLOSE, and we're set to go. So that's going to work just fine. And so we'll do a file save all, test our application, see what it looks like at this time, and it looks fine. I can type a number in here. Start button clicks, doesn't do anything. This doesn't do anything, but the exit button does do something. It closes off the form and we're off to go. So that looks like it's coming along pretty well. So the basics of our form is set up. Sure, there's lots to do yet, but we are making progress. Before we can do any math, we need to get this application generating two random numbers that we can use to do the math. That's going to require using the random number generator. We also need to get the buttons on the form. In this program, we're going to need a guide that users can know what they're doing. We'll cover that in the next video. What you need to take out of this video is an understanding of what we are trying to create, what we want to know or we want to do. Also an understanding of what we know, what we have so far. And then what's missing? How do we get there? The programming piece. We need a good sketch, a good plan, a map, something to follow. And finally, we need to create our form. All this is done before you type a line of code. And you may be missing some things, but everything you have done to this point will help you fill in any gaps as you encounter them. We'll start that coding in the next video, and we'll probably make some additions to our form, but slow and steady gets this job done with minimal errors. I'll see you next time. If you get a chance, please subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care.